This is Caring for Kids on News Talk 760 WJR. Presented by the Children's Foundation. And here's your host, President and CEO of the Children's Foundation, Larry Burns.
Well, thanks, Mark. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our December 2021 edition of Caring for Kids. On tonight's show, we have another great lineup. We're going to start with Dickow. Derek is a consultant and executive coach that hosts events promoting best-in-class people and organizations across the country. And Derek's a member of our very own Leaders for Kids Advisory Board. John McInerney, President and Executive Director of Buildup STEAM, will be our second guest. And third is Kristin Rohrbeck, Director of the Joanne and Ted Lindsay Foundation Autism Outreach Services at Oakland University. It's all coming up next on Caring for Kids, here on the great voice of the Great Lakes, 760 WJR.
It's Caring for Kids with Larry Burns.
Welcome back, everyone. Larry Burns here, Caring for Kids, December edition, as we wind down 2021. We're winding down in a great way. Derek Dickow is a world-class networker known for facilitating high-potential introductions. He is a passionate fundraiser, raising millions of dollars for business projects, political candidates, and charities he's passionate about. Today, Derek serves as a consultant and executive coach and hosts events promoting best-in-class people and organizations across the country. Derek is a highly sought-after professional keynote speaker, sharing his expertise on power connections and his 5 pillars of purpose-driven networking. Proud member of the National Speakers Association and board member of the Small Business Association of Michigan, Derek also serves on the Leaders for Kids board of the Children's Foundation. He's also my friend. Derek, welcome to Caring for Kids. Derek, you've certainly had a very interesting and diverse journey. Tell our listeners about the experiences that you've had that have kind of led you to where you are today.
Well, I appreciate that, Larry. Thank you so much for having me on and for what you do for our community and for our state and mostly for the children. You've been a mentor of mine since we've met, and I just appreciate watching. I admire the way you operate, and I respect what you do. So thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you. Very nice of you to say.
No, I appreciate that. So I guess this journey started for me back in 2009 as I transitioned out of the mortgage industry and was looking for a better way to utilize my talents and to leverage my God-given gifts. And I sat down with who was a mentor to me at the time, my uncle, who passed away in 2014. He was the preeminent pioneer of the Chaldean community here in Southeast Michigan. And we sat down, his name was Mike George Sr., and we sat down and we talked about ways to help the community beyond just trying to make a living. And how could I utilize what God gave me to help support others? And he gave me a challenge at that time. There were many refugees coming over from where my parents are from, which is we're Iraqi Christian. And so he said to me, Derek, as you transition into this new career, I want you to think about what you can do in terms of raising awareness to support these newcomers into our country. And so he gave us a challenge of putting together a fundraiser whereby we invited maybe 400 or 500 people out to Shenandoah Country Club in West Bloomfield. And so that night we ended up raising $30,000. It was a really wild experience for us, a lot of fun. And then he pulled me into his office and he had this talk with me about how to give back, why it should be an integral role of what you do in this world. I started my company, Steward Media Group, at the time in 2010, and I started with one client servicing a nonprofit organization, and just sort of built it from there. And it's been a wild ride, and it's all about leveraging my talent for others. And I really love what I do, and I feel like I'm good at it. I'm passionate about it, and it comes out in every conversation I have with others.
Well, that is for sure. You and I meet frequently, and it is always exciting to see your passion. And I've known members of the George family for, 30 years maybe, going back to my United Foundation days. And so you had a great mentor in George. So couldn't go wrong with his advice. And then you also introduced us, we're talking with Derek Dickow, to the Chaldean Community Foundation, Children's Foundation is now a proud partner with them, and that's going to continue. That's going to grow. And as I talk about networking, Derek, we all hear about it. I'm well into my career, but I take networking very serious, and I'm always trying to meet new people and see new opportunities. You're an expert in networking, and so can you tell our listeners some key pointers, things that maybe they've thought of, but maybe they haven't, or they haven't stressed? So what are some of those key things?
Sure. Well, I think that the number one thing to consider as you do go out there and be intentional about building your network the right way. The way, from my vantage point, about 60% of people are just terrible at networking. Another 30-35% are what I would identify as well-intentioned introverts, people that are really good at what they do, and they're just more comfortable being alone and more comfortable, not being a loud voice at one of these events. So what I prepare those people for is the research that they can do up front and trying to not think about, making an impact with 500 people, but let's just focus on 3. 3 is the number of sustainable, quality interactions that you can challenge yourself to have at any event you walk into. So it's not so overwhelming of a number where you have to walk in and think about how many people do I need to talk. You really just need to walk away from an event having 3 quality introductions. And so what I tell people before they go into any event, you should always have a couple things in mind. Number 1, what are my goals? Why am I taking time away from my family, from my business to go attend an event? Let's consider what that why is so that we're grounded and that we stay on task and focused. Number 2, always reach out to the event organizers. Let them know that you're excited about attending the event. In many cases, and Larry, this is true with the Children's Foundation, is there anybody specifically that I should meet that would be great for me to know? And most event organizers or presidents of organizations will say, oh, absolutely, we can't wait to introduce you to this person or that person. They go out of their way because their job is to provide value to their attendees. And so people miss that, right? So it's considering the why we're attending the event. Then it's the contacting of the event organizers. Then it's the research in advance of people that we want to meet. So, you have maybe an identified 3 people that are important to you. Sometimes I'll reach out to people a week or 2 in advance of a very big major event, like the Mackinac Policy Conference, as an example. Hey, I see that you're attending the same event as I do. I did some research on you. I want you to know I find what you do to be very interesting. I would appreciate maybe 5 minutes of your time for a formal handshake and an opportunity to introduce myself to you. And I say about 98% of people, when I make that type of introduction of myself and let them know that I'd like to meet, they're willing to meet me. I'm only asking for 5 minutes. And that's an important way to sort of maximize and be efficient as possible. And I see people attend networking events. They get there, they hang out with John and Bob, who they've known for 30 years. And so what I tell people is have that targeted list. You could be really efficient at networking events if you have maybe 3-4 interactions with people. The number is 3, and you could do all these within 5 minutes each of these pull-asides. And so instead of wasting 3 hours an event, you could be really efficient and maximize that into like a 20-minute window. Excellent. And then, the biggest point I make with people also is when they're meeting someone for the first time is, forget about business cards. Your only job when you meet somebody for the first time is to understand who they are, what they're focused on, what their goals are, what interests and excites them, and then listening with your eyes, nodding your head to demonstrate that you're paying attention to them and listening to their conversation and fully absorbing what they are and what they're after in their world. And then your goal is to add value, and it's immeasurable value once you understand their pain points. And for most people, the one thing that they're after is to meet the next person that could change their career. So if you're paying attention to what people are saying, they often will tell you, where they need to go. And our job as good networkers and power connectors, Larry, you're the master of this as well, is to bring those people together, unite the world, and then sort of wish them well on their journey. And that's a big part of it for me. I look at it like it's a game. I know you do too. And Yep. We're just adding value to people.
Well, those are all great points. And particularly about doing your research. Everyone, regardless of where you are in your career, in my opinion, is flattered by having knowledge about you and then asking you questions about things in your life. People like to talk about themselves. This advice is very, very important for me and for all of our listeners. So thank you very much for that. You are an expert.
Absolutely.
So now I mentioned in the intro, you've been involved with Leaders for Kids. Thank you. You just raised well over $50,000 in an evening, starting with your own very generous gift, and you convinced others to support our foundation. So first and foremost, thank you. We hope to do more of that with you in the year ahead. But Leaders for Kids, you've been a leader and involved. I wasn't around when Leaders for Kids was created, but was there a thought of combining philanthropy with professional networking for people in the, I'd say, the early to mid part of their career?
Yeah, I think that's an important connection that you draw between them. Again, from my vantage point, I've not met a successful person in my world that doesn't have some charitable foundation or philanthropic cause that they don't have passion about.
And so recently, I mentioned you helped raise over $50,000. I can't thank you enough, but I wanted to talk a little bit about your leadership summit that you had for entrepreneurs. It was a full house. It was in Birmingham at the lovely Townsend Hotel. You dedicated those funds to the Children's Foundation. And tell us about your leadership summit ideas and what you hope to do in the year ahead.
Well, thank you for that. This was our fourth year of producing these types of events, and obviously during the pandemic, we pivoted to a virtual format. But we could not wait to arrange and produce and promote an in-person event. And the Delta variant this summer kind of pushed things to the fall. So this was actually our first in-person business event in 2 years. Mm-hmm. And so people were yearning for that face-to-face, pressing the flesh and just getting in front of others. And it was just a good moment for us. It was three different panels that we produced. We brought in some keynote speakers, a director from the state of Michigan. We had the Speaker of the House, Jason Wentworth, serving on a panel. And our role in that, Larry, is to provide as much value as we can to our sponsors, to our attendees, and to the service providers. And so one of the ways that we do that, and I think is an important component of why our events are successful, is because we provided this power hour of speed networking, where I did a 10-minute keynote on best practices of how to build your network and the right questions that you should prompt. Instead of asking, how are you? Instead of asking, where are you from? Really changing the dynamic and helping people understand how to get to elicit a positive response out of that person, which is our only goal when we're asking questions. Everything else is a waste of time. But I did a 10-minute keynote on how to build power connections. And then we went into this power hour of speed networking. And so I sat across from Larry for 4 minutes, a bell rings, then I went to Mark and so on and so forth. And I looked at the success of the event about 5 days before the event, and I reached out to the foundation and said, I'm really excited about this event, and this is our biggest event that we've ever produced. So I do want to make a gift. And I said, I have no idea how to do this. I saw Paul W. Smith do it a few times, but leveraging one gift and asking for others and just kind of leaving it up to the audience to determine who's in. And to our absolute astonishment, it was about 5 minutes. We were able to take my 5 into 55, and it was a moment for me. I've raised money by the phone for years, but I've never done it in a public format like that, where I just made an emotional appeal. But it works, and we'll do that moving forward at every single business event that we produce. Well,
wonderful. It may have been the first time you did that, but you did it well, like the expert you are. So, Derek Dickow, thank you for being on Caring for Kids. Your pointers on networking were extremely important. I know people out there are going to write those things down. And again, thanks for your donation to the foundation and your donation of your time and efforts and skills to Leaders for Kids. So look forward to continuing that relationship. So Derek, thank you, and wish you and your family, your mom and dad, I know your sisters and your nieces and nephews, a wonderful holiday season.
Thank you, Larry, so much. It was a pleasure. Privileged to be on the show. Always to be great speaking with you, learning from you as well, and wish you guys Merry Christmas, and I know I'll see you soon.
All righty, thank you. That was Derek Dickow. So to get a hold of Derek Dickow, it's pretty easy. Go to derekdickow.com and you'll have him. Next, we're going to talk with John McInerney of Buildup Steam about our new partnership. That's when Caring for Kids continues here on the great voice of the Great Lakes, 760 WJR.
Welcome back to Caring for Kids on WJR, presented by the Children's Foundation.
Welcome back, everybody. Larry Burns, Caring for Kids, December. Here with me now in the studio on Caring for Kids is John McInerney. John is the president and executive director of Buildup STEAM. After 7 years of teaching kids at numerous engineering, robotics, and STEAM workshops, John made it his mission to bring that same joy of creating to those who need it the most. John started volunteering at C.S. Mott Children's Hospital, and through this work started the Creative STEAM Unit. The STEAM Unit allows kids to build, create, program, and play with Lego robots in their hospital rooms. John expanded his program to the Children's Hospital of Michigan with the support of the Children's Foundation. John, welcome to Caring for Kids. So, John, I mentioned you started your efforts at C.S. Mott Children's Hospital. Great place to start. Our very own Luann Ewald is the chief operating officer. Now she's chairperson of the Children's Foundation. And so tell us about that effort and how have youngsters reacted, and then we'll talk more about our grant. But, you know, you all started at Mott. How did all things go?
Absolutely. Well, thank you, first off, for having me. I'm honored to be here.
You're welcome.
So I was a year out of college and didn't have
Where'd you go to college?
I went to U of M. I studied art and design there at Penny Stamp School.
Okay.
Yes. And my hope was to one day work for Lego. I wanted to be the person who designed the sets and models that would bring joy to kids all across the world.
Wow.
So I worked to learn product design, applied to Lego, and I didn't get hired.
Oh, their mistake. Did you always like Legos even as a youngster?
Oh, yeah, absolutely loved them. I was always making stuff, and that very much transferred into my career where I am always
that's
still making stuff.
Oh, cool.
So as someone who wanted to be the person who designed these Lego sets, it kind of naturally fell into, all right, I'm not going to work for Lego. I might as well take my skill set and bring it to the kids who would benefit most from it. So I was able to still do the thing that I really wanted to do, is design these sets, but for a grander purpose.
Absolutely.
So I was introduced to some folks at Mott. First off, JJ, who's the patient technology coordinator, and their goal was to do video games with the kids to improve the hospital setting.
Yep.
So I talked with him and pitched my idea. He said, all right, let's get you volunteering. So at the beginning, it was a very humble effort where I had this foldable wagon where I'd bring in a bunch of clean Lego and a few robots and set up in the activity rooms. And anyone who wanted to could come down and build whatever they want. If anyone wanted to build a robot, I'd show them how to do it. And I was doing that for about a year. And one day, I get everything set up, ready to go, and no one showed up to the activity room. And I'm like, man, it'd be better if I could just go to them. And the idea for Buildup Mobile was born, the original program. So I kind of put everything into a cart and started going bedside, working with the kids.
And they let you do that?
So it took a lot of
convincing?
Not too much convincing. I think I proved myself as a very hardy volunteer. That on top of, I put the cart together, designed a sanitation process, pitched it to them. They're like, oh, you know, why don't you make these changes? And that should be good. And then from that moment on, I became a contractor for the patient technology team.
Awesome. And we're talking with John McInerney about Buildup STEAM, and he's telling us about his journey, and it's very, very interesting. And how did it evolve at Mott to where you are today at Mott?
Yeah, so the reactions of the patients and families were kind of the things that kept me going. There were some moments that really inspired me to continue working on this project. One of them being, there's this little guy, and it was his last day at the hospital, but he didn't want to leave until he built a robot.
Okay.
So they're like, John, you got to go over there.
Right, you got to go over there. He's got to go home.
Yeah. So I get over there, and we built this race car. And he was super excited. He put it all together. He's like, can we drive it down the hall? I'm like, yeah, sure, let's go. So we're driving this little car down the hall.
So it had a motor?
Yep. So all these Lego sets that we're doing in the hospital are actually robots. So we build and then program them to move.
Wow.
Yeah.
I've seen them, but many of our listeners haven't. So
Right.
That's why I'm asking.
So we have this car going down the hall. He's like, Can we go down this hallway too? Sure. And we ended up going all the way around the unit back to his room, and he called it his victory lap.
Oh, that's awesome. That is awesome. How old was he? About?
I would say in the age range of 5 to 7.
5 to 7.
Yes.
Yeah. And then he went home.
Yep.
They don't take the Legos with them, right?
Nope. So everything stays within the hospital to make sure
You clean it and you get it all ready to go to the next one.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. And so I met you through your brother, Tom, who is a partner of ours with Rocket Mortgage Classic. And we met and loved what you were doing at Mott. And so I said, well, let's see what the children's child life people think. What do I know? But that's what they do every day. And they said, absolutely. And so you applied for a grant.
Yep.
You were successful from the Children's Foundation of getting that grant. And so tell our listeners now what you're doing at the Children's Hospital of Michigan.
Absolutely. So as part of Buildup STEAM, our nonprofit, our goal is to continue to expand the program and work with as many kids and new populations of kids in the hospital as we can. So this was our first opportunity to train someone else to run the program independent of me. So far for the past 4 years, it's been me running the program, and that's it. So this was very exciting to be able to train someone who was interested in working in the hospital setting with kids to run and operate the program. And this ended up being a really cool bridge position where we were able to train a school teacher to run the program who was interested in a career in child life. Yeah, she was able to come in, work with the kids, and she was there at the Children's Hospital of Michigan for 7 months. And now I actually just wrote her a letter of recommendation for her practicum, the next level in that child life.
In child life, yeah. Wow, good for you. And so how are the kids at Children's Hospital of Michigan? So it's downtown Detroit. Mott, as everyone knows, I think, is in Ann Arbor. And so is there any difference in what you see with the kids or their reaction? Just curious.
So from my perspective personally, I've only been in the room of 2 patients at CHM, and that was in training, Christina, who was over there. But what's really cool is the reaction of the kids is the same every time. They're working very hard each step, putting things together, and when the robot's finished, their faces light up.
Yeah.
They're so excited to see things moving around and working.
Yeah, so when I went over to Children's to experience that was my experience as well. I was a young lady who was very, very involved in the robot, very involved in her accomplishment, and very happy when things work. So I would say the grant is going very, very well. So do you want to be in more hospitals?
That's the dream, to be able to continue expanding this program to new hospitals, new spaces. Patient technology is something that is catching on in more and more hospitals to where just this past year, the first patient technology conference happened. So it was very, very exciting to be a part of that as well, to see all these other hospitals with these patient technology programs where my program, like it did at Mott, could just be part of that.
Yeah, like we did. And we got over the fact that it was just you. Now you have more than you, right? And to do more, you need more.
Yep.
So if anybody is listening and they would like to help you expand, how do they get a hold of you, John?
So if you go to buildupsteam.org, that is our website. We have all the information you could need on the program, and you have a way to directly contact me through the website as well.
So buildupsteam.org. We'll post that on our website as well. Is there anything else you want our listeners to know about how they can get involved? You're a nonprofit.
Yep.
So they can go to your website to support you financially too?
Yep. You can donate through the website.
Okay, good.
Everything donated through the website, it goes to funding new materials for programs. And if we can fundraise enough, we can partner with whatever hospital we want and fund the program for at least a year if we are able to, raise enough funds.
Yeah. So here's a question, put you on the spot a little bit. Would you be interested in going in an organization that's not a hospital? I'll make this up. Let's say a Boys and Girls Club or something that has kids at that age.
Absolutely. That's actually kind of an extra thing I've been doing with different organizations, one being the First Tee of Greater Detroit.
There you go.
We do different robotic classes for the kids. And with the First Tee, I made a robot that's actually a golfer. So the kids build this golfer robot and program it to swing and putt a ball.
Really? Yeah. Well, as you know, the First Tee of Greater Detroit is an affiliate of the Children's Foundation.
Yep.
So that's terrific. So
we've done some.
That was a loaded question. You had the answer already. So if there's other people out there that have ideas, they can contact you on the website.
Absolutely.
So, John, thank you for all you're doing, for your spirit as a young person, to take a passion you had as a little kid and turned it into something that's making others smile and also making it your job.
It's been an absolute pleasure and an honor, and I'd love to keep spreading the joy.
Awesome. You will do that for many years, I'm sure. That's John McInerney of Buildup Steam. Coming up next, we're going to hear from Kristin Rohrbeck, who is doing some great work on her own at Oakland University. When Caring for Kids continues, right here on the great voice of the Great Lakes, 760 WJR.
Welcome back to Caring for Kids on WJR. Presented by the Children's Foundation. Once again, here's Larry Burns.
Welcome back, everyone. Now in the studio is Kristin Rohrbeck. Kristin is the director of the Joanne and Ted Lindsay Foundation Autism Outreach Services, also known as OUCARES, at Oakland University. As director of OUCARES, Kristin serves over 2,300 people impacted by autism spectrum disorder in Southeast Michigan with more than 100 annual programs. Kristin also takes active roles in research and writing and has been published in journals such as the Journal of Autism and Developmental Disorders and the Journal of Cognition and Development. Kristin is a well-known advocate and leader in the autism community in Michigan and has been recognized with multiple awards, like being named the #1 top 40 under 40 professional in Oakland County in 2019. All right, Kristin, welcome. Caring for Kids. Oakland University is growing. I've seen it grow immensely over the last few decades, which is awesome. Your medical school is a big part of that growth, of course. Along with the medical school, you have so many other programs serving our communities. And let's talk specifically about the Autism Outreach Services. So let us know about that.
Yeah, thank you so much first for having me here and wanting to learn a little bit more about what we're doing at Oakland University Center for Autism. Our OUCARES, or the outreach services that we offer at Oakland University, were established back in 2004. We began then as the autism population was growing more and more. And we started at that point with only one program. It was an outdoor soccer program at that point for about 20 families with young children impacted by autism. Since then, we've grown quite a bit. Now we offer over 100 programs every year.
I mentioned that in our intro. That's awesome.
And we offer our programs to over 2,200 people impacted by autism every year. So those programs include things like recreational sports. We offer social skills programs and clubs. We do a lot with adults, especially related to employment readiness training. We offer summer camps every year. So a lot for individuals with autism spectrum disorders. And we begin offering these kinds of supports at age 3.
Age 3.
And we begin doing a lot of early intervention kinds of social skills and programs. And then we develop more and more as kids get older and into teens and adulthood. So we offer programs throughout that entire lifespan for individuals on the spectrum.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So people can stay with you.
Oh, for sure. They stay with us, and then we also have supports for anyone who also support those people with autism. So we do a lot of parent training. We do a lot of trainings and events for professionals and educators and also the broader community. And beyond just our autism outreach services, which I should mention for sure, we have a wonderful partnership with the Ted Lindsay Foundation.
Yes, I was going to ask you about that, how that kind of came to be. And we've done a couple things with them. We'd like to do more. And I've played in their golf outing one year.
Yeah.
And, so how did all that come about, and what's the partnership like?
Definitely. So the Ted Lindsay Foundation was wonderful in helping to acknowledge this hole in services and supports for teens and adults with autism spectrum disorders. There wasn't enough to support that sector of the population. Okay. There's more and more
teens
earlier.
And adults was their specific sort of age groupings.
Exactly. So they gave us a wonderful endowment in 2018, and now OUCARES is officially the Joanne and Ted Lindsay Foundation Autism Outreach Services.
Wonderful.
And we do a lot now because of them to offer supports more and more for those older individuals on the spectrum.
Okay. And you mentioned that sort of the age starts at 3. And hasn't one of the issues been kids aren't diagnosed until 5, 6, or even older?
So autism early intervention services and diagnostics have been developing more and more, where kids can get diagnosed when they're in infancy or toddlerhood. Okay. And more kids are getting diagnosed at those earlier ages.
That wasn't always the case, though, right?
Not at all, no. Okay. oftentimes, especially historically, more kids were getting diagnosed later on in childhood or even not going diagnosed or getting diagnosed as a teenager and adulthood. But one really big thing that came out in December this year, early December, is that now the U.S. Centers for Disease Control are showing that at least 1 in every 44 children is now being diagnosed with autism.
Wow. What did it used to be? Do you know?
Back in the 80s, it might have been 1 in every 10,000. It's grown. It's been a 241% increase in the prevalence of autism just since 2000 alone.
And do you think that is better diagnosis or more kids with autism or both?
I think there are a lot of factors that relate to it. I definitely agree that we have a lot more diagnosticians. We have a lot more training around it, but there are a lot more kids who also, I think, are having challenges that need the help.
Gotcha. So we sort of touched on it, but what are some of the new developments in the field that have been developed? You mentioned earlier diagnosis and some other things, but is there anything else that's been, I know funding has been an important step, meaning insurance.
Exactly.
But are there other things that are going on that the average person should know about?
The only other big thing that I was going to mention was that the state of Michigan, especially that you just brought up, insurance now often covers autism services.
Right.
And it's up through the age of 21, which is not widely seen in other states. So the fact that we have many insurances that cover autism-related services up to 21 is huge in the state of Michigan. And also the fact that we have public school services for some individuals, those transition years up to age 26 is another great thing that we are offered in the state of Michigan that oftentimes in other states is not offered to this community.
Yeah, well, that's good for Michigan. So we have a new partnership with the Children's Foundation. We hope to have many partnerships with Oakland University. And so this was our first one. So we're pioneers, if you will.
Definitely.
And so tell our listeners about that relationship and what our grant is supporting.
We are so thankful and grateful to the Children's Foundation for helping OUCARES to grow our services for individuals with autism, because we have been very, very lucky to be getting an almost $40,000 grant to implement virtual reality and augmented reality technology to help teach emotion regulation, awareness, and social skills to individuals with autism, especially to help them improve their mental health and wellness.
Awesome. Well, we are delighted to be able to help. And as I like to say, I hope it's just the beginning of that. And so one of the things I've learned over the last few years is navigating the autism sort of journey for a parent is very challenging. And does OU work with that? Do you help families navigate? I know the Autism Alliance does some of that. They do a great job. They're a partner of ours. But tell us a little bit about what people may need to know. They're out there driving and they think or they know that they have a child, a grandchild with autism, and they're not sure about navigation. So
Definitely.
Advice.
Thank you. OUCARES is a huge resource for the community, just to be able to call and find local resources that actually are implementing services, not only clinical services and therapies, but also other kinds of supports for those kids through adults, like I mentioned, with autism, but also parents, networking, connecting with others who are going through similar kinds of situations, finding supports for educators and other professionals who need a little bit more training, or even employers who need to know how to support their employees with autism, or their employees who support other people and have children maybe with autism.
Right.
So they can come to OUCARES for all those kinds of services. All they need to do is just send maybe a brief email and connect with us at oucares@oakland.edu, or call us anytime at 248-370-2424. Or if you just even Google OUCARES.
OUCARES. Google that, and you can navigate to get in contact with you.
Definitely.
And where do you see OUCARES going in the next few years?
We definitely see ourselves growing quite a bit. More and more people are getting diagnosed at all ages. More and more parents need support. And a lot more people are reaching out to us wanting our program. So we have a lot of areas that we're going to be growing, and a lot of areas that we're looking to develop new supports as well.
Great. And so anything else you want our listeners to know about OUCARES or about anything that you're doing? And we've told them about how to get a hold of you. So that's important. Anything else you want them to know?
One other big important fact is that Oakland University has a great Center for Autism as a whole. OUCARES is the outreach services, and we do a lot, but our Center for Autism hosts an ABA clinic, or an Applied Behavior Analysis clinic, for young children. We also have great academics for people who want to come to learn to be a professional or an educator to support people on the spectrum. And we also have great research opportunities. So if people are looking for an all-around great center to support people with autism, they can come to the Oakland University Center for Autism.
I know you know this, but when we submitted the grant to our grants committee, they were so impressed with the program that they said, can they get some research element of it? And so I know our team contacted you about that. So
yes, we're looking forward to that.
Yeah, we like that as well. So, well, thank you for what you're doing. And I look forward to continuing our partnership with OU. We're working on some support of the Jamie Daniels Foundation, from the Jamie Daniels Foundation, which is one of our affiliates.
Sure.
That helps people recovering from addiction.
So important.
So that one we hope to create a partnership. And then we're also working with your golf teams, men and women, because we now run First Tee Greater Detroit. And so hopefully that'll happen. And then I had an interest, and I don't know if this is possible, but to integrate what you do with First Tee for kids with autism, to use golf as a way to exercise or do some things. Do you think that's possible?
We actually already have a golf program that's developed and really successful with children with autism on the same golf courses that you are likely going to use, and we would love to partner to figure out a way to do it better together.
On Khaki Cousins and the Sharf?
Definitely.
Those are wonderful golf courses.
They are. They're beautiful.
Very hard, though.
We're lucky to have them on campus, for sure.
Yes. It's a gem, with Meadowbrook out there and the golf courses, and just it's a beautiful place to be. So you're doing great work. And
thank you.
Children's Foundation looks forward to developing more partnerships with Oakland University in the years ahead. So, Kristin, Rohrbeck, thank you.
Thank you so much, Larry.
You're welcome, and happy holidays.
Happy holidays to you.
Coming up next, I'm going to provide an update on some foundation news. So stay tuned here on the great voice of the Great Lakes, 760 WJR. Well, that was a great show to end the year, Caring for Kids 2021. Looking forward to next year as well. So make sure you join us in 2022. The Children's Foundation recently announced our Round 1 2022 grant awards. We awarded 85 grants totaling nearly $4 million. We also welcomed 9 new partners to our growing list of 140. And since 2011, we've granted nearly $75 million to these partners. We are definitely on the move. Finally, I'd like to thank you all who join us on a monthly basis, or if this is your first time, come back to Caring for Kids. On behalf of all of us at the Children's Foundation, I'd like to wish all of you a wonderful holiday season and a happy, safe, and healthy new year. Onward to 2022.
Caring for Kids with Larry Burns on WJR has been presented by the Children's Foundation.